Okay, so on this one, they want us to solve this equation. So let me bring it down here. We have x squared equals minus 3x. So we have this equation. We want to solve for x. How do we do it? Well, on this one, we don't even have a 0, and we need that. So step 1, get 0 on one side. So we have to get a 0 because what we're about to do is all about 0. It's all about getting a 0 on one side. So step 1, get a 0 on one side. What do I mean by that? Well, I mean, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to add 3x to both sides. And when I do, these cancel. So that puts 0 over there. And what's the other side? X squared. X squared plus 3x equals 0. So step number 1 is we get a 0 on one side by adding 3x to both sides. So there we go. And then step 2 is we factor. Meaning like with a number in the front and the parentheses, and the 2 numbers on the inside. That we factor it because we have to have it multiple. So to factor it, I'm going to take out the x that they have in common. And what does that leave on the inside? Whatever works. X times x, we'll go back to x squared. X times 3. We'll go back to 3x. Like that. So factor, that's step 2. And then step 3, each part equals 0 and solve. So now we take each part separately equal to 0 and we solve. So I'm going to grab the first x alone, that equals 0, or the second x plus 3 equals 0. Why am I doing that? Well, because that comes from the idea that if I said to you, hey, I'm thinking of 2 numbers and I multiply them and the answer comes out 0, what does that mean? That means the first one is 0 or the second one is 0, huh? You know that if 2 things multiply to equal 0, one of them has to be 0, right? The first one could be 0 or the second one could be 0 because 0 times anything is 0. So that's what this is saying to us right here. These guys are multiplying, right? Parentheses, we multiply to equal 0. That's why we got a 0 on the right side, and then we factor. Because we factor means right and multiply. Because we wanted to be able to use this logic at this point. If 2 things are timesing, multiplying to be 0, the first one could be 0, or the second one could be 0. That makes sense, doesn't it? 2 things multiply to be 0, first one or second one could be 0. So then now the first one's all done. The second one we have to finish solving for x by subtracting 3 from both sides. Boom, boom. And then we get x is minus 3. So the 2 answers we get are 0 and minus 3. 0 and minus 3. So 0 and minus 3. You put them in either order, doesn't matter. -3 first, then the 0, whatever. Just put a comma between them. Both of those answers make the equation true. And let's prove that real quick. Just, you don't have to, we're done with the problem really, but I just want to show you that really we're finding what's true. Look at that original equation. If I put in 0 for x in both spots, it's going to be true, isn't it? 0 squared does equal -3 times 0. Right? 0 squared does equal -3 times 0. That's true. And then how about if instead I put in the other number? What about the -3? Does that work? If I plug in right here, -3 squared, does that equal -3 times -3? Well, of course it does. 9 equals 9, huh? See how those really are the 2 answers, 0 and -3, that make the equation true? And so there we go.